this is Ken Segal. I'm partner with LGA LLP and head of its business advisory investment banking services. I have the pleasure today of interviewing my friend and colleague at RSM, Anthony Catalano, who's principal National Cyber Lead Private Equity and Family Office with RSM. Our first installment in this series was Understanding Cyber Threat Language, and the second one of our Scared Straight series on cyber is going to be exploring the potential impacts of cyber attacks. Anthony, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ken. How are you doing?
Good. Did you sleep well last night, knowing all the different terrors you're seeing in the universe?
I always sleep well, Ken.
No, it's cool. So again, what we're going to be talking today about is exploring the potential threats now that we understand the landscape. So the first is, how can a cyber attack disrupt daily business operations?
Yeah, Ken, for our last conversation, you know I like to tell stories, so I'll give you a really quick example. So I was driving home from a doctor's office, called me, and he said, I haven't slept in a week, I need your help. And essentially that client was running a steel mill, a steel foundry, and they had been hit by ransomware, and the steel pour was actually halfway through when the ransomware hit, and they actually lost that entire steel pour, and they were unable to resume business operations for 2 weeks. They were losing $1 million a day. And not only did they get hit by ransomware that one time, they actually came back and did a double ransomware event and hit them again about a month later. So they have been exposed to ransomware on 2 separate occasions. And it can really just cripple a business. We'll talk about later on how many businesses can actually go out of business from this, but it's a significant impact.
Yeah, we've seen it too with our clients. Obviously, I guess, is the false crutch to say, don't worry, we have cyber insurance.
You know, the cyber insurance is a really nice to have, but one thing that I would note is if you get if you get hit by ransomware, you're going to be down for 2 weeks, whether you recover from backups or fully restore your system or actually pay the ransom. So it's a nice to have. It can provide a level of assurance and maybe help an organization financially get through that time, but it certainly isn't going to stop the pain. And I assure you, whether you have cyber insurance or not, you're going to lose a lot of sleep over an event like this.
Yeah, no disrespect to our insurance friends out there, but insurance companies are in the business of not paying claims. And if there's holes that they can find, they'll obviously exercise those. Kind of one of the implicit issues of the cyber attacks is the implications of these data breaches on the trust relationships with businesses and their clients. So we talked about it briefly last time, is you get the heartfelt apology from retailer ABC that says, hey, we got hacked, so sorry. But it kind of begins and ends there. But you can tell me a little bit more about the broader implications of having these issues.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the implications, you could potentially disrupt a relationship with a vendor or making sure things continue to move forward from a business perspective. And if you interrupt that, you could potentially disrupt that relationship. We've seen vendors dropped after cyber breaches. I've personally witnessed, I would say probably 80% of organizations that go through this will lose customers or vendors that they have relationships with, some going back, 20 or 30 years. So that can definitely have an impact on the organization. And from a reputation perspective, if you know a business has lost data or lost, continuity because of a cyber event, you're probably going to start to think twice about whether or not you want to do business with them. So it's not a good position to be in. In the competitive world that we live in, that is not an edge that you want to lose.
So then obviously it can have an impact on companies' competitive position, marketing position, and the like. So again, it's not good enough for a company to say, so sorry, we're hacked and everyone else in their sector was hacked. That stigma is something that people haven't become numb to, is what you're saying.
Exactly. You're looking at a loss of consumer confidence and trust. In some instances, you have a loss of intellectual property. I had a private equity fund that had been hacked, and they came to us and they were curious because their competitors kept getting a leg up on them in certain deals. And they became very suspicious, and they were actually tipped off by one of their competitors that a hacker had broken in and was selling their information about deals online prior to deal close. And those competitors were actually recognizing that and going and undermining them or undercutting them in specific deals. And what had happened was a hacker had compromised their system externally and knew about the deal flow and was just selling that data to their competitors. And they lost a lot of money. And you would think into the hundreds of millions of dollars because of that specific hack.
Well, I think the competitor that was buying the hot information should also be a little culpable for that, but everything is scary. Nothing surprises me.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, there's an old Carl Icahn quote that says there are no friends in business. If you want a friend, get a dog. But I think that goes well beyond that. As
Exactly.
far as the regulatory bodies, is there any protection there? I mean, obviously there's some oversight. Are they more just a hammer if there's an issue, or do they provide the bumpers and kind of legal support so that if someone goes off the rails, it's fixable, or do they take an active or passive role in that?
That's a great question, Ken. I think a lot of cases you see regulatory bodies pushing out these security kind of objectives to organizations to say, hey, you need to do these things or you're going to get fined by us. That has helped move the markets forward, right? A great example is HIPAA, right? HIPAA says do some things or you're going to go to jail. And that has helped the healthcare industry as a whole really advance their cybersecurity capability. The problem is with HIPAA is it's not very prescriptive, which is funny because you would think, healthcare and prescriptive, they just don't exist. So HIPAA has moved the needle forward, but HIPAA is also kind of self-funding. The Office of Civil Rights is the enforcement wing for the HIPAA privacy and security rule, and they issue heavy fines and penalties to healthcare organizations all over the place. And that has motivated other healthcare organizations to get better. GDPR, which is European data privacy, they have issued some of the largest fines pertaining to cybersecurity and privacy that we've ever seen, right? $1 billion fine for Facebook. So that does motivate organizations to move the needle in the right direction. I think their guidance has been beneficial. And obviously we need to continue to, as we say in cybersecurity, crank the screws on that. We need to keep moving in that direction.
Okay, I'm not going to sleep again tonight. Thank you. I guess my last question is, these are short-term events. Someone gets hacked, they do the heartfelt apologies. There's short-term repercussions, but I assume in your world you've seen the longer-term sustainability, and even some companies go out of business because of irreparable damage from ransom, hacking, and the other. So this isn't just a short-term thing. This can actually cause immense long-term strain or demise of companies. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, Ken. So, I have some statistics from the federal government. 40% of small businesses experience a breach that results in 8 or more hours of downtime, right? This downtime accounts for up to $1.56 million in losses. 60% of small businesses that are the victims of a cyber attack go out of business within 6 months.
So you say it's not a matter of if, but when. So really, by having as much of your house in order, you can minimize the impact of this. But if you're totally unexposed or totally exposed, totally whistling past the graveyard, if you will, you're going to have a higher severity of long-term impacts by not being on top of it preemptively and knowing what to do when there's an issue. Is that
absolutely?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that a little bit more in our next video, but I would say definitely, starting small and ramping up, understanding where your risks lie and how much risk you're willing to tolerate is the start. And then really just build a sustainable cyber program and make that a part of how you do business. And that will get you into a proactive capacity as opposed to reactive. And like I said, we'll talk about that more, but definitely the right way to go.
Well, again, this is second part of our series in Scared Straight and Cyber, and hopefully all appreciate the severity of this and that everyone is culpable, everyone is vulnerable, and you really have to get on top of this. And obviously our friends at RSM do yeoman's work in this area, but we look forward to having our next series in this odyssey. And thank you for your time so much, Anthony.
Thank you, Ken. Have a great one.